So yesterday, Xbox finally made it official. They have a special Xbox podcast planned for this Thursday where they intend to give some kind of business update. Now, the speculation for this has just kind of been all over the place. People are freaking out over this situation. Will this be the beginning of the end of Xbox as we currently know it? Now, that might sound a little dramatic, but that is the question that's being thrown around on the internet. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today because in a report by The Verge, they did claim to know some of the potential plans that Xbox could announce at this event. And I think if this report is true, then there's going to be some very mixed opinions afterwards. I think some Xbox fans might be okay with it depending on how they announce it, while others might be a lot more frustrated, which is really all the more reason I believe Xbox needs to deliver whatever this message is properly and carefully. Their PR will need to be perfect this coming Thursday. Now, do stay tuned because we do also have various other smaller topics to talk about as well later in the video. But let's just go and get right into this Xbox report and what this could potentially mean for the future of the Xbox brand. So yes, this is coming from The Verge and Tom Warren. This is a well-respected outlet. A lot of people do trust them. And we can read here that they said an Xbox Game Pass slowdown might be why I'm hearing that a number of Xbox exclusives are coming to consoles which Microsoft usually competes. Sources familiar with Microsoft's plans tell The Verge that the company is getting ready to launch a select number of Xbox games on PS5 and Nintendo Switch. Weeks of rumors suggest that Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, and even Bethesda titles like Starfield and Indiana Jones could appear on non-Xbox platforms. The first two games that are set to appear on rival consoles are Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment, according to sources. Microsoft is also currently planning to launch Sea of Thieves on non-Xbox platforms later this year, with other first-party titles also under consideration. Now, I have consistently emphasized that last word there. Consideration. I think this is really where some of the reports have been maybe blown out of proportion to agree, just a little bit. Now, I do fully believe the rumors going around that games like Starfield and even Gears of War was discussed internally. I do imagine that Microsoft has or is considering every single one of their games. They're going to do their due diligence with this and decide which games make sense or doesn't make sense for this new multi-platform approach that they have. But consideration, and this is the important part, does not necessarily mean that they're currently planning to port said games like Starfield. It's just kind of being floated around within Microsoft, and after that, we'll kind of see what happens in the future. For the more immediate announcements that looks to be absolutely happening, it sounds like Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, and Sea of Thieves will be coming to other platforms. Those are the games that could potentially get announced at this Xbox event, which really kind of takes us back to square one. This was essentially the rumor from the very beginning. They have a few smaller games planned for other platforms, albeit absolutely fantastic games. I can easily recommend all three of these games if they come to other platforms. If this rumor is true, do not sleep on them, especially Hi-Fi Rush. It's really just such a good game. It was an easy top 3 game for me last year. The big question with all of this, though, is that even though these are smaller games, or in Sea of Thieves' case, just an older live service game that could really use an influx of new players, is this muddying the water? Is this damaging Xbox consoles? Because that could be a potential conversation after this Xbox event. As I said yesterday, I don't really believe that Xbox is going to announce they're going full third party. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I believe they will have future exclusives planned, which they'll probably discuss here, and they're not going to leave the console business behind for at least the time being. They do have another console planned down the line, but this case-by-case basis thing is, it's just not going to sit well with the entire Xbox community. I think some fans are going to be fine with it, and there can even be an argument that this could be beneficial for Xbox's future. These games have probably done the most they can for Xbox consoles and subscriptions up to this point, so why not port them to other platforms and make more money out of them? I think that's kind of the line of thinking with that. While others, on the other hand, they might be a little more frustrated by this announcement, and I think that's perfectly fine as well. Like, there's this mentality that people have that for whatever reason that everybody should feel exactly like they do at all times, but that's really just not how life works. Everybody will have their own opinions about this topic, and I think that's reasonable. Everybody's not going to be in agreement over this situation. So if you don't like this plan, you have every right to feel the way that you do, just as somebody else might not be bothered by it all. But that also kind of leans into the argument that this new case-by-case basis strategy could be very risky for Xbox consoles. Now, does all of this mean that this is the end of their console business as we know it? And right now, I think that might be a little bit dramatic. No, I don't think that it is, or at least depending on their full long-term plans. We do still need to hear directly from Microsoft themselves. We need to hear the context of the situation. But I think as long as they do this with just smaller games or older live service titles like Sea of Thieves, well, then they will still have plenty of newer reasons to entice people to their Xbox consoles. Sure, there is a fine line with all of this, but as long as they're making big-time future exclusives, that might be enough for a lot of people out there. Now, at the same time, though, every time they do something like this, it does make it harder for them to sell their consoles and subscriptions to people on other platforms, because there is that question of what else will get ported in the future. Them opening Pandora's box might be the more important immediate question. So that's why I think Xbox needs to deliver this message, whatever it is, clearly, precisely, and carefully. Depending on their full plan, whatever it is, it has to be delivered perfectly to not have that constant question come up in the future. And if they can't do that, then yeah, the online reaction might not be pretty afterwards. They have to deliver this message correctly. Let me hear your thoughts on all of this, though. Do you think it's smart of them to port some of their smaller games, or do you think that this is a bad decision? Again, I think there's going to be widely differing opinions on this, so let me hear your thoughts below. All right, so let's go and switch gears here and talk about Helldivers 2 once again. We talked about its launch success yesterday because it is now PlayStation's most successful PC launch of all time, and it's actually their first big live service success this generation. It's gotten off to a great start despite some of its early technical issues. Well, now reviews are backing that up as well. You can see here on Metacritic, it has an 82 overall score as of this recording. It only has 10 reviews for the time being, so that number could change significantly over time. But from what I've seen, they do kind of echo a lot of what we've seen on Steam. They just describe a fun, cooperative experience with a good gameplay loop. So, I mean, if you haven't played this game already, and if you've been on the fence, Helldivers 2 sounds legit. Most of its complaints are limited to its technical issues, which has already improved. I imagine that will improve even more over time. And then there has been some complaints with its anti-cheat measure as well. Other than that, it sounds like it's just a good, fun game, and that's really good to hear from Sony. It honestly looks like they finally got that hit live service title. Now, I also want to go and key you all in on a free game because you can actually get Dead Island Riptide Definitive Edition right now for free on Steam for a limited amount of time. This is a follow-up story set after Dead Island 1, and you'll have until February 15th to add it to your account. So right now, go and pause the video, go and do that, and then come back. Now, the reason that they're doing this is because Dead Island 2 is finally heading over to Steam on April 22nd after being exclusive to the Epic Games Store for a full year, and that's the other big part of this story. Steam is by far the biggest PC storefront, and the first Dead Island did pretty well on the platform. Truthfully, I always kind of wonder if it's worth it for these publishers to make these exclusive deals with Epic, because, you know, you're really losing that launch hype on Steam and, you know, just the sheer community size that Steam has to offer. I look at last month's Prince of Persia as well and kind of wonder about it skipping Steam. I would have bought it on Steam if it would have launched on there, but at the very least here, Deep Silver is getting a lot of attention for its Dead Island 2 Steam announcement and a free game to pair as a sort of celebration. Now, fans of the Nintendo 64 also has reason to celebrate because Cavern of Dreams just got announced for the Nintendo Switch. It will be out on February 29th, and I mean, check this game out. If you grew up playing 3D platformers on the Nintendo 64, this is really just pure nostalgia. They absolutely nailed the art style of those old retro games. I know I personally grew up with these style of games. Banjo-Kazooie still remains one of my favorite games ever made. And really, the Nintendo 64, it is one of my most cherished consoles ever. That was a big part of my childhood. So, this game really grabbed my attention and yeah, it got me a little curious. I looked it up on Steam afterwards, and lo and behold, it's been available on there since last year, and fans seem to adore it. It does have a 96% approval rate, which is always a great sign. So yeah, this is going to be a niche title. I get that and everything. It's probably not going to sell millions and millions of copies. But again, if you grew up playing the Nintendo 64 and if you like old 3D platformers, maybe go and check Cavern of Dreams out later this month when it launches on the Nintendo Switch. Again, it will be out on February 29th. All right, so one last quick update here. No Rest for the Wicked unfortunately received a delay, and if the name isn't necessarily ringing a bell for you immediately, this is Moon Studios' next game, the creators of the Ori franchise, and, this is a game that I've had my eye on. I firmly believe the Ori games are easily among the greatest Metroidvanias ever made, and while No Rest for the Wicked is a very different game, it is an action RPG, but I'm once again really drawn to its art style, and it looks like it has some true potential. Unfortunately, though, we will have to wait a little bit longer before we get to play it ourselves. Private Division decided to push its release back from Q1 2024 to Q2 of this year. So that means that it's now planned to release in April, May, or June. It's not a massive delay, but you can see Take-Two's CEO say this here. It did get pushed a quarter, and as always, we will move something if we feel like we just want to give it a little more polish so it can be the best bet it can be and be an even more amazing experience for consumers. So really, I think that's the smart choice to make here. Early impressions are very important, and for me, I just want a good game. Just take your time and get it right. That's always my bottom line when it comes to delays. That's not going to change anytime soon. And hopefully, when No Rest for the Wicked does release, hopefully it will deliver another standout hit just like Moon's Ori games did prior. Maybe Rest of the Wicked can also be one of the better action RPGs that we get for 2024. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. Again, let me hear your thoughts about that leaked Xbox business strategy. But until next time, peace out.